Welcome back, traders and investors. We have on the line Alan Brochstein of the 420 Investment Letter. And Alan, you've been one busy guy lately analyzing these stocks, huh? Is it starting to tire you out a little bit?
Am I starting to tire out or the market?
No, these stocks, I mean, with the news out every day, the halts, the GW, the Morgan Stanley upgrade, I mean, just,
Yeah, it's exciting times. Honestly, I'm definitely not tiring out myself, but neither is the market. There's a lot going on.
okay.
Uh, we've actually added. I added somebody. I think it was in March, and then we're about to announce our second hiring of a associate of mine. So we're real busy at 420
Do
Investor.
you do drug testing?
Then, yeah, actually, it's funny. My friends at MarketFi, they wanted to play a joke on one of my interns. They wanted to tell him he had to submit to a drug test. And the thing is if he passed, then he would be hired. If he failed, then he wouldn't be able to work, they said. We don't have that rule. So, no drug testing.
Okay, GWPH. I mean, how did Morgan Stanley get that so right, Alan? I mean, come
because
on,
they're Morgan Stanley.
come on. How did they?
I,
Did that have you turning your head, or do you just not?
I'm very skeptical about the way Wall Street works, and people have reported that was the first broker to cover it. But I know
Yep.
that Bank of America Merrill Lynch covered it. Picked up coverage right at the high and goosed it to
I did an
almost the ninth.
article. I
So,
did an article on that. I did.
right. So this was there was no news in this one. It was interesting because if you actually read the report, the most exciting part I saw was I've never seen this kind of number out there, but I think it was 245 is their bullish case. That 103 was just a base case. But let's face it, the only news was that Morgan Stanley's covering it. Period. End of story. And of course, Jim Cramer took it and ran with it and told people it would double within 48 hours. And that was a little off also. But this is the same Jim Cramer that said he's not talking about pot stocks anymore.
Very good point. Very good point there, Alan. I like that. I'm not talking about pot stocks anymore, but if Morgan Stanley is, then I could talk about pot stocks. That's
Well,
a good.
I guess GW, which has some news out this morning too,
Yep.
they're not really a pot stock. They're a biotech. Let's face it. They're totally different from the rest of the space. And we had a position. We sold a little bit into it, and I didn't feel so smart about it the next day because it went up 2 more days after that. We made two small sales in our long term. We call it the 420 opportunity, but these are usually not ways to make money. So I was kind of surprised to see it rally so much on that news. But we had 2 weeks ago when I was on with you guys, we were talking about how there was a lot of support. I thought down at 41.50, and I think it got within 28 cents of there. And that's usually the way GW works. It doesn't quite get to where you think it's going to get.
I was looking at this chart over the weekend, and I was looking at the big run it had had, and it was digested, obviously, and was pulling back, and I was like, you know what? This thing pulls back the 60 area today. I was thinking maybe, I'm going to jump in and actually try for a trade. And then I come in, and I see this news, GW Pharmaceuticals, fast-tracking Sativex, and the stock is up 7 points. I'm like, ah!
I
Because
know.
I was just eyeing it up here at the 60, and it just didn't quite give me a shot to get in there. And obviously now it bounces all the way back up here. So this news, you know anything about this Sativex?
Well, yeah. So this is, it's funny. Back to that Morgan Stanley report, it kind of confirmed what others have been saying, which is the real value in GW is probably not in Sativex. It's even though that's the near-term catalyst, the real value is in this epilepsy drug, Epidiolex. But that's one of the great things about GW. They have a very rich pipeline, and Epidiolex received the potential to become an orphan drug status, which will give it exclusivity for I think 5 years in the United States.
Wow.
And they received it in Europe also. Being fast tracked, they still need to get the clinical trials, the results, but this is a pretty easy phase 3 study that they're in right now, and it's almost the exact same as their phase 2, and so it's not viewed as a very tough clinical trial in any event. But this is just a real sign that there's a lot of things going on at GW Pharma that are very substantive. In a sector where people are wondering if these companies are real or not, there's no question about GW Pharma being real. But as far as the price goes, it's interesting. Do you realize, I'm sure you guys look at the volume also, but I calculated almost $1 billion worth of this stock traded last week, It's unbelievable, almost the full float. But,
Yeah, we noted
Yeah.
that, and that was one thing that did not have, because a lot of times when you see like a big move like that, you want to fade it, because
right.
just instincts all these years trading. But then I looked, and it went from 300,000 shares, 400,000 shares, its average daily volume. Then it trades 67 million
Crazy.
shares. It's like, hello. Okay, I
Well,
mean,
that just tells me that gap's not going to get filled. They left a gap behind Monday morning a week ago, and
It was the gap and go. We talked about
yeah,
it too, actually, ahead of
okay,
that on the Monday morning. We thought it could be one of those scenarios of a gap and go. I just never thought it would be a gap and go 15 points. I thought maybe gap and go and run a few more points, but that would have been the buy. It opened at 50 and ran all the way to 65.97 that day. That was one of the best gap and goes I think I've ever seen.
yeah.
correction there, 6.7 million, but still a huge jump in volume there. Just real quickly, if we have many traders out there in the issue today, 72.30 was your initial pop here in the pre-market. Didn't quite get to your high from Thursday at 74.69. So if the rally continues through that 72.30 level, 74.69 was the high of the move. This current news is not taking it through that level. So just want traders to keep an eye on that. So, all right, moving off.
Alan, just
Go ahead.
before we move on from GWPH, do you think this could be a scenario of another gap and go here today, or do you think
I
that
don't
this
think
news
so.
is kind of priced in?
I think this is kind of priced in. It's
Okay.
there's some questions about what's going to happen if they get, we're still a year away from this, but if the FDA says yes and rescheduling and some issues like that, I mean, there's some broader issues that may impact this one down the road. But I don't think that. I think this is the Epidiolex orphan status was actually bigger news to me, but it's another positive step, but I don't think it's that surprising.
Okay, all right, and then going from the good to the bad here, and we've had a couple halts over the last couple weeks. Never a good sign for stocks. Growlife, the latest one here to catch the scrutiny of the U.S. government here. Plunged on that news here. Poor boy, trading 21 cents here. Alan, what's your outlook for Growlife?
Well, so for the sector in general, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. This was the fifth halt, the third SEC filer. The first three names weren't really well known. The fourth name was actually one of the better names in the space that we've talked about before. That's the one that's tied to the business development company FULL, but there we're talking about CANN. GrowLife, which we talked about 2 weeks ago, is the most widely held name in the sector of the penny stocks, and so there's some questions out there as what's going on. And the company came out with a press release and a video statement right before the trading reopened, and really pointed to this being a third-party issue, saying there's no investigation. It's a real mystery. I spent the 2 weeks. I talked to the SEC. I talked to customers. I talked to competitors, the company. Who else did I talk to? Journalists and national magazines that have looked into the space and been negative, Seeking Alpha contributors who've been negative. I reached far and wide to find out the real story and was never able to find anything. So at this point, I have to assume that whatever the SEC saw, it wasn't necessarily something that the company had done bad. There's no investigation announced, etc. So the fact that it reopened and traded down, I don't mean to say only 60%, so that's not a lot, but truthfully, typically these things open up 85 to 90% down. Now, CANN, we know that one didn't fall as much, but the reason for that is there's just not that many shares in the public float. But this one's very widely held, so I found it interesting that the stock seemed to find some support. It traded, I think, 110, 111 million shares. To do the math on that, it was like over 20. It was almost $25 million actually. So you don't usually see stocks kick to the grave trading $25 million. So that's a positive, I think, for the sector. We'll see how it plays out. I'm hoping, that the company is just maintains its focus and stays on track, and this doesn't deter them from what they've been
How are they going to
working
turn
on.
things around? I mean, this is the streets view. I mean, they got this thing down to a dime. So, I mean, they pretty much have this company pegged at near worthless. I mean, bankrupt. I mean, what?
Well, not really. That's 80 million market cap at a dime. So I wouldn't say that. I think that you have to separate the business from the stock. And yeah, there were some people that were desperate to sell. There were calls. Some people said the stock was going to go below a nickel. So I didn't believe that at all. We actually I had a conference call Wednesday night with subscribers, and we kind of laid out what we thought were the expectations, and we had a central forecast that most of the trading would take place between 15 and 30. The high was 28, and we said that there were some outliers, and 10 cents was the outlier that I suggested on the downside. There was an opening trade near there, but almost all the trading was at 15 cents or higher. That was kind of an off trade, but I don't know. I don't think there was any sort of message like you guys said. It's not, the stock began the year at 15 cents, so it's up year to date, which, for a halted stock, suspended stock, it's all, like I said, glass half empty, glass half full. I'm pretty happy actually to see that the stock is still up year to date.
John Spangler is in here in our chat, and he's actually one that's caught long in this thing. He's just asking, would you be buying more down here to lower your cost, or is this something you maybe stay away from?
So no, well, so we have at 420 Investor, we have two different models. One's kind of a trading oriented one, and the other's longer term. And it's easier to probably explain the other one, the longer term one. But in any event, for both of those, we did add positions. The long term one at 22 cents, I think it was at about 10:15 in the morning, if I'm not mistaken. And then on the trading one late in the day, we added at 21 cents. So I that's my view. I kind of viewed it as an opportunity. Are you going to get rich quick? I doubt it. These things take a while. In the stocks, any stock that trades without a quoted bid and offer is not very encouraging to investors.
Scary.
So, right. So I think that there was a lot of uncertainty on Friday. Like I said, some people were saying it would go to a nickel, and even now people are saying, oh, it's going to bleed to death. But the liquidity is definitely there, and I would imagine. Just listening to my subscribers, it sounded like a lot of them wanted to buy but couldn't because their brokers would only allow them to sell and not buy. So that's an interesting dynamic. It'll take a while for that to change, or they'll open up accounts somewhere else. But I know that I think Scott Trade yet to call it in. Merrill Lynch wouldn't let you buy it. I heard a lot of stories like that. So we'll see how it plays out. But when you look out 2 to 3 months from now, hopefully. The requotation can start within 30 days. It probably won't happen that fast. They have to reapply for the market makers. But, as we look out, if there's no issues that arise out of this and the company continues to execute on its business plan, I think investors will look past this. That CANN rallied as high as, I think, $26 after going from 29 to, it opened near 7 briefly, but really traded from 10 to 20 that first day after it reopened, which is April 10th. And traded, like I said, almost all the way back to even. So I think, I'm not a penny stock guy. I know that the history of penny stocks is when you get suspended, it's usually death. But I have to tell you, usually when penny stocks get suspended, they probably deserve that. There are a lot of scams in penny stocks. I'm going to stand by my judgment that neither CANN nor PHOT are quote-unquote scams. And hopefully they overcome these issues. And one day, hopefully, we find out why the SEC actually halted these stocks.
So they can halt them and cause this kind of chaos in the market and not really reveal
That's correct. Correct. I want to be careful.
Wow.
I'm all for FINRA and for the SEC. There's a lot of crap. There's a stock. It is so obviously fake to me. I just reported them to the SEC. I don't expect to ever hear back from them. I don't expect them to act. I don't understand exactly why they act on certain things and why they don't on others. But there's many people out there who think that the SEC wanted to cool off the sector. I don't have evidence of that, but it wouldn't surprise me. And you can't sue the SEC for this. Companies really have no recourse. They have no right to demand any information. The SEC acts in the interests of the public, and they can do what they want basically. And so I don't know that there were no issues. According to GrowLife, they believe it relates to something with a third party. That was the case with Advanced Cannabis Solutions that was tied up with uh, an affiliate is the exact word, but an outside shareholder. I don't know what the circumstances are for sure in either of these, but the SEC doesn't have to say.
Alan, before we let you go, I always like to get my FITX update from you. Obviously, I live down the road there
That's right.
from where this huge facility is being built by FITX, and I always take a drive by it and I look, and there is a ton of construction going on there. Obviously, they're doing this growing or facility here. Did you talk, or is there any updates here on FITX in the last couple of weeks?
So since I spoke to you, we had a great event in New York City that was two subscribers from 420 Investor got behind this evening and arranged for 4 companies to speak, and I was there as well. And we had 170 people at Chelsea Piers in New York City. And one of the guys that was there was the CEO of Creative Edge Nutrition, Bill Shaban, and he spoke during dinner. And then he also hosted a bowling party afterwards. He didn't bowl; he was just talking to people, but. I actually bowled a strike, which was interesting. That's a whole nother story, but I'm not much of a bowler, but great party. But to answer your question, there's 2 catalysts there. Well, 3 things have come up since we last spoke. 2 catalysts remain the same, which are uh, he's promised audits by the end of this month, and hopefully they deliver on that. That will allow them to uplist, and he spoke about that at that event. The other thing is that there should be an inspection of this facility soon. It hasn't been announced yet, but that obviously would be a huge catalyst as well. The third thing that came up was he appointed John Germanario as independent chairman, as well as added a new independent director as well. So this is a company that historically I never would have looked at this company. The pink sheet, never made money, looked just like garbage. But the debate here is this project real? And then the secondary debate is if it is real, which I think it is, how big can it be to be a large marijuana producer in a regulated country like Canada? So we'll see how it plays out, but I think the company's cleaning up, and it continues to be a pretty polarizing stock. People love it or people hate it, and I'm probably in the middle. I don't stand up on my desk and shout "Go FedEx" every day, but I think the company's going to do much better than the Bears think.
Yeah, did you have a lot of high scores at that bowling match?
Yeah, funny. There were. I'm not going to comment on that one.
Okay. All right. Kyle was out there and he said it was very informative and that, a lot of people, they're really focused on the sector and, they got to hear the good news and the bad news and the indifferent, Alan. And I really appreciate your coverage of the sector. You recognize, the potential problems with it, the stocks that are involved. And I think it's great the coverage that you give. And, investors are fortunate enough to have, someone that's, trying to follow as much of an unbiased perspective, and it's a tough industry to cover, and I think you do a great job at it.
Thanks. We are trying to peer through the smoke and find the real winners, I guess.
Okay. All
All
right,
right.
Alan.
Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good week.
All right. Thank you.